an accounting problem. What do you do? How do you solve that? Well, old Henry, he said, well, I've got on my desk 12 buttons. 12 buttons. And each one of those buttons is hooked up to a paid professional, like an accountant or a lawyer or an engineer. And he said, when I've got an engineering problem, I punch button number 4. And then an engineer comes in and I tell him, here's what my problem is. And he goes out and he solves that problem, comes back and gives me the answer. And whenever I've got a legal problem, I punch button number 8. And then the lawyer comes in and I tell him what my legal problem is. And he goes out and researches the law and he comes back and gives me the answer. And then whenever I've got an accounting problem over here, I punch button number 12 and an accountant comes in or a CPA and I tell him what my number problem is, and he goes out and he solves that problem. He comes back and gives me the answer. Says that's the way I run my company. Well, heck, boys and girls, that's what we call vertically integrated management. Vertically integrated management. That's where you take a bunch of people at Enron and then you take specialties. Like one guy over here is the company controller. Another guy over here, maybe he's the head of the chemistry department. Another guy over here, he's running something else, and on down the line. Ken Lay doesn't have to know a heck of a lot, about chemistry. He didn't have to know very much about accounting. He needed to know a whole lot more than he knew, evidently. But typically, the guy that's running the company over there, he's not too smart. I can remember I used to run a corporation. I had 30 employees, and I didn't know everything that was going on there. I'd call on those people just like Henry Ford did. I didn't have any buttons on my desk. I just got them on the telephone and called them in, say, hey, Milton, I got this problem over here. What's the solution? Hey, Peter, I got the problem over here. Solve this problem for me. And then with those answers, I go make my policy decisions and go from there. Heck, isn't that the way the president runs the country? He has a cabinet. He might not know too much about defense, but doesn't he call on his defense secretary and says, hey, we got this problem over here. Let's go solve it. Isn't that the way that works? Well, anyway, old Henry Ford won his case, and just goes to show you that just because you've only got a 6th grade education doesn't mean that we can't build or run or manage or operate a big company like the Ford Motor Company. Now, I got to give you a reminder, and we'll come back and we'll talk about Thomas Edison. He was even worse off than old Henry Ford. He only went to the 3rd grade and had 1,200 patents. Now, how does a fool like that reach that kind of a level of success? We'll talk about that in just a second. Let me remind you that you're listening to the Law Hour, an editorial review, sponsored by the Gordon Law School of Isabella, Missouri. The Law Hour is heard 7 days a week here in the United States, worldwide over the Internet, and if you'd like more information about the Law School and the Law Hour, please go to our webpage. That's georgegordon.org. The law school teaches family law, tax law, courtroom strategy and procedure, business law, agricultural law, civil rights, and biblical law from the scriptural perspective. That's 8 schools altogether. The law school is a private, non-commercial, non-profit, non-sectarian law school that is open to individuals by prearrangement. The law school conducts a homeschooling program for adults on compact disc. If you'd like more information, go to the homeschooling page on our website at georgegordon.org, georgegordon.org. The Law Hour website is updated weekly. It has a radio log schedule and archives, and it can be accessed through the website at georgegordon.org. The Law Hour is carried worldwide over the Internet, and all of these Law Hour programs are archived on the Internet by title and date. The Law Hour is an educational service brought to you in the public interest, and the Law Hour brings you timely reports on law, science, education, politics, religion, health, history, economics, news, and current events, and we do it 7 days a week. The law school offers a free 4-hour introductory CD package. Be sure to order one by calling the law school at 417-273-4967. Once more, that's area code 417-273-4967. Now, the opinions, beliefs, comments, views, and expressions that you hear on this program are mine and mine alone. They don't necessarily represent the beliefs and opinions of the advertisers, sponsors, management, or staff of this network or local radio station, who probably all have degrees from college. For more information about the Law Hour and Editorial Review, please go to our website at georgegordon.org. That's georgegordon.org. Or you can call us direct at 417-273-4967. All right, we're back. We're talking about college degrees and professionals. Professionals in general, not necessarily the college degree or the fact that you went to college and you wanted to learn something. I'm not opposed to education. After all, I run a school. We're all in favor of education. We think it's the greatest thing since sliced white bread. And that's what I'm talking about here with Henry Ford. You know, Henry Ford, although he didn't go to college and get a degree, do you think he was ignorant? Did you think he was stupid? Did you think he was a fool? And if that was the case, how in the world did he create the size of an organization or the size company turning out a product, a worldwide organization the way he did? No, sir, Bob. And then there's a second guy over here that caught my attention. His name was Thomas Edison. I don't know of anybody other than Thomas Edison that has 1,200 patents. 1,200. No, not 12 patents. If you went out and you invented something like the hula hoop and you got that thing patented, or you invented something like safety glass and you patented that, that would be quite an accomplishment. I've never invented anything. I don't have any patents at all. None. Zero. Not a single patent is in the name of George Gordon. So, I'm not very bright. Never claimed to be. But, I'm nowhere near the level of an inventor. And I've talked to some guys that are inventors and that do have patents. And God, those guys are really pretty bright fellows, They really have to know something. And a lot of those guys go to college in order to learn the things that they need to know, the specialized information, like a guy is a chemist and he uses chemicals over here to do useful, productive, meaningful work, and he gets a patent, he gets for a process that he comes up with, like separating gold from gravel and stuff like that. Well, anyway, this guy, Thomas Edison, he invented such things as the motion picture camera and the light bulb and the phonograph. I mean, hey, listen, kids, that's pretty impressive. And he invented DC motors and DC motor processes, and he held patents on all kinds of neat things that we use every day. And a lot of things that we don't know much about. They weren't all that successful, or they weren't all that marketable. But there are 1,200 of these patents. The guy only went to the third grade, and he was deaf on top of it. The guy's deaf. He's only gone to the third grade. He's got 1,200 patents. He dies a multimillionaire. The name Edison, is synonymous with the light bulb and the phonograph. All right. Now, there's a couple of examples of people, and there's a lot more. I mean, there's literally, millions of very successful people in our history that go back, thousands of years, including Jesus himself, that never went to college and that turned out to be, fairly successful people in life. I just thought I'd throw that out for your consideration, that it isn't necessary that you go to college in order to avoid total failure in life. Now, I never went to college, and I never thought of myself as being a total failure in life. I'm not an Edison, and I'm not a Ford, and I'm not a Donald Trump, and I'm not a George Bush or a Donald Rumsfeld. But then, I'm not a bag lady living under a bridge either. My granddad was a pretty successful man in life, and my grandmother was a pretty successful lady. And the world is full of and filled with very successful people that have never gone to college. And I wanted to throw that out there, for your consideration, so that you don't get mad at all of us blue-collar workers, because keep this in mind, all of you people now with letters and degrees. You people don't want to work. Ichthyologists are not out here changing pistons in their engines or pulling transmissions out of their Corvettes and changing them out now, are they? No, sir, Bob. When people get letters after their names and they're out here, teach in college, they're professors and they get their tenure in one thing and another. Those people, they don't want to get their hands dirty and they don't want to do what I call useful, productive, and meaningful work. Now, Henry Ford did. Thomas Edison did. And I got to tell you here that we've had some pretty successful people in the legal profession. I'm in the legal profession, and so sometimes people say, well, you're kind of hard on lawyers. Well, hell, everybody's kind of hard on lawyers. Lawyers are criminals. Lawyers are not very good people. Now, fortunately, I can say things like that, because I'm not running for public office. But, if I was a politician, like you saw this guy Trent Lott. Old Trent Lott, a few years back, he went to a birthday party. And Strom Thurmond, who was about 100 years old at this party, Strom Thurmond ran for president of the United States back in 1948 against Harry Truman and Tom Dewey. And old Strom Thurmond, he was a pretty successful guy in life. He was a governor, I think, of North or South Carolina, I forgot which. He was a senator. I think he's about the longest serving senator in the history of the Senate. If not, he was sure close to it. I mean, he was senator until he was about 96 or 98 years old. And Strom Thurmond was a very sincere segregationist. And of course, today segregation, is equivalent to discrimination, and it's about as popular as AIDS in an office Christmas party. But he was one of those, and he let it be known he ran for public office on those grounds, and one thing and another. Well, anyway, as time went on, he got to be old and full of years. He was 100 years old, and Trent Lott went to his birthday party, and he was asked to give a few words over there, and he said something to the effect of, if we had more people like Strom Thurmond over here, the world would be a better place. God, that just made people furious, and even the Republicans turned against him. See, all the blacks turned against him, said, well, that Strom Thurmond was a segregationist, and we represent 12% of the popular vote out here, and so therefore, we need to throw this Trent Lott to the wolves, and so they did. Trent Lott was thrown to the wolves. And I'm not here to eulogize Trent Lott. I've got no use for politicians in general, and I can't say much about him in particular, but I just wanted to point out that politicians, by and large, have degrees after their names, and they're all college people. And how would you like to have friends like that? You go to a guy's birthday party, and you say, well, I say some good things about this guy at the birthday party, and then all of a sudden they say, well, we want you to give up your leadership post, and we're going to turn against you over here. I thought we had something like free speech, that people, we might not agree with him. I don't mind people that don't agree with me. I don't mind people that have disagreements. But shouldn't they have a right to express themselves? I mean, the integrationists feel like they should have the right to free speech and that they should have a right to espouse their views concerning miscegenation and integration and so on. Well, then shouldn't anybody else have a right to express a contrary view without being fired from his job and castigated? So that's another complaint that I have against these people, especially with the degrees, because these people in the Congress, these people with all the degrees over here after their names, they don't seem to be very loyal, and they don't seem to be the kind of people that champion free speech. I don't see that among truck drivers, plumbers, and carpenters. I notice that when we have a group of people over here, and they're blue-collar people, they have very divergent views on these very same topics. But I've never had one say, well, Gordon, you ought to be thrown in prison because of your views, or you ought to be castigated from your job, your occupation, or your profession because of your views or your beliefs. I haven't run across that yet. But you sure find that among the educated elite. Boy, they don't like that. Now listen, I'm going to give you a little story here about lawyers. 12 lawyers. Here's a list of 12 lawyers and a little story about each one of them, including Strom Thurmond in here. I think he's in here. I'm pretty sure he is. Yeah, Strom Thurmond. Strom Thurmond, he was admitted to the bar in 1930, and he later became governor of South Carolina, then senator from that state. That's quite an accomplishment, to be a governor